Hello there.
General Kenobi.
Hello, and welcome to the Couch Criminals review of Obi-Wan Kenobi, Episode 4. I feel that there was more that I disliked than I did like, unfortunately. As I recap the episode, I will go over specifically what those things are. Mostly, I feel that it has to do with the show spinning its wheels, and I feel it is not taking advantage of the benefit of being a 6-episode series, because having so few episodes allows you the luxury, I'd imagine, of keeping a very tight and contained story. It's not like network TV where you have to fill 24 episodes. It starts with Kenobi on the way to a Bacta tank where he needs to heal his wounds from the fight with Vader from the previous episode. And when he's put into the Bacta, you see that there's some sort of force connection between him and Vader. It just shows that they are suffering and both thinking back on the fight, and Kenobi finds it overwhelming and gets out of the Bacta without being fully healed, which doesn't really come into play later. He swims fine. You'll see later in the episode he moves just fine. I thought he was gonna go in the Bacta, Book of Boba Fett style, flashback to important parts of his life, and I feel like those two specifically having a connection through the Force would have been a perfect opportunity to have a Clone Wars flashback. And that's not just something I say for the sake of fan service, but I think that delving into them at that time in their lives when their relationship was good and they got along, I feel like that would have helped inform us of how broken and terrible their relationship is now, and remind us why Obi-Wan is so broken and why Vader is so broken. It didn't really go anywhere. They felt a connection in the Force. Obi-Wan got out of the tank before he was supposed to, and that was that. Obi-Wan wakes up, gets out of the tank, and asks about Leia. Then we cut to the Fortress Inquisitorius, in which she is being kept. It's an underwater base that we've seen earlier in the season, and Reva tells Leia that Obi-Wan is dead, and she's pressing her for any information she might know about the Path, which is the Jedi Underground Railroad. This is so odd. This is one of the things I don't like about the episode. We cut back to the interrogation of this child multiple times, and I know she's supposed to be 10, but she looks like a 6-year-old, and she's so baby-faced, but Reva is taking it completely seriously, and it's playing out like every interrogation scene you've seen in a cop show. Reva going, "Tell me where they are," and slamming a piece of paper on the table, and Leia being shocked by the slam. It's taken so seriously with this little baby in the chair that it just feels like a parody. I know it's supposed to be serious. It was not working for me at all. Tala and Obi-Wan talk to this guy at the base he's being held at, and when he sees Obi-Wan, he says he needs to take the first transport out of here. He's putting everyone in danger. He even goes so far as to say, "General," to Kenobi. He says this, "General, I'm sorry, but that's not my problem." And Obi-Wan and Tala explain that actually it is your problem. It's super important to get this girl back because she knows everything, which seems to be the most convincing thing that they tell him. He still doesn't change his tune after that. Obi-Wan says, "You don't know what the Empire is capable of." And the guy, as happens in many shows, the guy responds to this with a story of his own. And he's like, "Yeah, I do know what they're capable of because the Inquisitors killed my wife. I've got your back if you need it." And the exchange felt so shallow, and it made it seem like, yes, I remember that I hate the Empire now. I'll help you. It just feels like the exchange was only there for padding and fake tension. And it wasn't really helped by the guy's acting. I didn't think he delivered his lines very well. I feel that it was inefficient. I feel like more efficient storytelling, having the same impact, would have been this man saying, "Ah yes, I've heard about General Kenobi, of course I'll help you." And this could have served to bring back a sense of pride and dignity to Kenobi that it seems he had lost working all those years on Tatooine as a nobody. All it takes is an expression from Ewan to show us that that's right, I was a general and I am a good fighter and I can do this, but that is not the path they chose. Next, they're talking about the infiltration plan of the Fortress Inquisitorius. Kenobi mentioned some speeders that they're holding in their hangar bay, which will be important for later. On the way to the fortress, Obi-Wan is trying to use force powers and is having trouble. Tala says that it is not just his body that needs to heal, but that he needs to forget the past, as it is obviously weighing very heavily on him. To which he says, some things can't be forgotten. She says, you care about Leia, so you're going to have to try. And I like this because she's basically telling him, stop holding back. I think the entire audience can get behind that sentiment. So next, Reva interrogates a child. Tala infiltrates the base. There's a scene about her security clearance meant to build tension. I had a feeling that she was going to be okay, and she predictably was. This is too early in the episode. I knew she was going to be okay here, so I just felt no tension. We've seen this so many times before, where the good guys sneak into an Imperial base and there's a tense moment where they might be discovered and then they escape. Again, you could be more efficient here, where there's just a fleeting moment where she did not know whether her clearance was still active and she holds her breath and then her keycard or whatever goes through. The reason I feel it's important to make a cut like this and the one I mentioned before is not because I think the episode needs to be shorter, but I think they need to give this precious screen time to the right things. We should not be spinning our wheels with the Leia interrogation when we know she's going to be okay. We shouldn't be spinning our wheels with the security clearance when we know Tala will be okay. The show that was advertised was about Vader and Kenobi, them reuniting and having 6 hours to explore that relationship, how they felt when they parted and how they feel now. We could have seen Vader on a mission as we were reintroduced to him and had a whole episode dedicated to what he's up to in that time period. That would be interesting. We are on episode 4 of 6, and all I know is that Obi-Wan is sad and Vader is angry. We're getting to look at someone we've never met infiltrating an Imperial base and a 6-year-old being interrogated. I feel like the show is afraid to dig deep with character interactions. None of the interactions feel meaty, a lot of it lacks emotional weight, and while I'm taking the wait and see approach, I feel that this show's legacy will be that of a huge missed opportunity, and the greatest contributor to that sentiment by far is the quality of the writing. So next, Obi-Wan swims into the fortress. Reva tries to get into Leia's mind but can't do it. Reva grabs Lola, the droid, stating that she had a droid once, but it was taken from her like everything else. Obi-Wan infiltrates further and distracts troopers with the Force. We cut back to the interrogation again, and Leia says she'll tell Reva what she wants to know, so long as no one gets hurt. And Reva says, don't even trip, dog. No one's gonna get hurt. I've never even hurt anyone. Leia says, cool, I just gotta run it by my dad first. Since we're all on the same side, right? Basically, like, I'm not gonna say anything else without my lawyer present. And Reva says, okay, we're gonna put you in the ultra torture chamber. So then Kenobi finds a chamber of dead Jedi in stasis. It's unclear why they're there. They could be trophies, or they could be for cloning purposes, but I think they're most definitely dead, or else he probably would have done something to free them, I'd imagine. Tala calls an emergency meeting with Reva just before Leia gets tortured. Kenobi takes out 2 stormtroopers, shrouded in darkness, only illuminated by a red light from the floor and Kenobi's lightsaber. Very visually striking and cool to see. Meanwhile, Tala is lying to Reva I find this scene more tense than the previous one, and I think it's because it's so much later in the episode, and Tala has served her purpose of getting Kenobi to Leia, so I feel she actually could die at this moment. Kenobi fights off stormtroopers, deflecting blaster bolts and cutting them down. It's so satisfying to watch, and the blue glow reflecting off the floor is again striking. My only complaint is that there isn't too much more of this in the episode. I was really hoping Kenobi would have to battle one of the Inquisitors before leaving the base, but unfortunately this never comes to pass. As he's fighting them, one of the deflected bolts hits the glass of the underwater base, and I think Leia's facial expression is great here because she's like, oh my god, do I need to worry about that? Then Obi-Wan holds back the water and the breaking glass. Then he redirects it to the stormtroopers on his tail, narrowly escaping. Kenobi and Tala are walking out, and Leia is hiding in a big trench coat Kenobi is wearing. It's very funny because while they're walking away, the alarm is blaring, the base is on high alert, and no one is staying extra vigilant on the exit port. If they're looking for a child, shouldn't at least one trooper go, hey, look at that man with a child-shaped trench coat? Reva finds them, of course, and the two speeders in the hangar bay, mentioned earlier in the episode, intervene, shooting up the stormtroopers at just the right moment. Reva takes down one of the speeders, blowing it up. After Kenobi makes his escape, Vader arrives at the fortress completely pissed that Reva let him get away. She says she allowed them to escape because she attached a tracker to them. Vader responds, saying, perhaps I underestimated you. Our heroes arrive to the ship feeling the loss of their comrade. Leia and Kenobi hold hands, and we see the droid Lola is how they are being tracked. End of episode. Now, for having 3 episodes left, I feel like there just wasn't enough here to be satisfying. I feel like by this point we've done the setup. There should be much more action. This episode, I feel, should have been focusing on how Kenobi feels after re-encountering his old apprentice and how Anakin feels. You could have cut between those two in the first half, cut out all the unnecessary stuff of, oh, I can't take him to the base, all the interrogation stuff. You could have implied the interrogation with Reva, like have one scene where she's trying to get into her head with the Force. She can't get through Leia's head, and so she's like, we'll try other methods, and it's implied that she's about to be tortured, and everything else can go. It was unnecessary. So the first half of the episode, how Obi-Wan and Vader feel. Then the second half should have been pure action. This is a prequel. We know Obi-Wan is okay. You have the luxury of doing pure action. You don't have to detail all the infiltration stuff. They talk about the infiltration. Okay, he's in the base now, and he's fighting off stormtroopers. The end. Because all of the action here was phenomenal, and there just should have been more of it. So I'm underwhelmed by the interactions we've had in these 4 episodes, and I'm underwhelmed with the amount of action. I'm hoping that these last 2 episodes are killer. I really do hope for that. But if they are, they're probably the episodes that I'm just gonna keep going back to, because I really don't like it in a show where there's great stuff, but it's buried under a bunch of mediocre stuff. It makes it really hard to recommend it to people. I just expected more, and I heard that the show has half the budget of The Mandalorian, which is so odd to me. It's so confusing how they would take a legacy character like Obi-Wan and give it half the budget of this new one. You would think that a property as huge as this would be given like the Game of Thrones level of attention, you know? Like, make sure that the writing is tight, make sure that the effects are tight, and that you are making good use of your screen time. But this doesn't feel tight. Some parts feel really cool and show potential, and other parts are just sloppy, like kind of sloppily making our way, flip-flopping our way through the galaxy. yeah, that's my review of Obi-Wan episode 4. I'm still looking forward to episode 5. I'm just hoping for better. Alright, that's it. Until next time.